Good morning, fellow soul adventurers. Welcome back to another edition of Owl's Nest Unprepared, Uncensored, Unfiltered. Where the only rules here is do it messy, do it ugly, but just do it, right? So, there's been a story I've been wanting to share, and I have actually shared this with a few people. And I think it was a very pivotal moment for me, and when I really started working on, my level of self-worth was really highlighted at this time. I mean, it was just, yeah. I'm gonna pull over so you don't have to watch me. Yes, I wanted to share the story, and like I said, I've shared it with a few of you already. Oop, boop, boop, boop. Sit down for a second. So this story has to do with self-worth, self-respect, and that has been a huge theme for me for months now. It's almost like the next big thing that I've been working on personally in my own personal journey. And it really started, it really just was highlighted in this very simple but very beautiful moment that I had. And I'm bringing this up now, I guess, because worthiness, self-worth, and that kind of thing, claiming what you deserve, that kind of thing, seems to be also a collective sort of topic these days, especially this time of year and what's going on, with the woo-woo energetic stuff. I know. But, so let me get into the story. So, as many of you know, 2 years ago was my first trip to Denmark in May of 2024. And that trip in and of itself was, so many things about it was such a huge catapult for me in my journey, in my personal healing journey, and this journey back to myself, really. Even though this journey had begun years before. But this was just, this added a little bit of fuel to it, this trip. So, one night in particular, I was staying with my friend in Denmark at her home. And I had brought my pajamas with me. My pajamas consist of a t-shirt and shorts, for a lot of us. That's cool. There's nothing wrong with that. But, I'm not a nightgown or matching pajama kind of girl, but that's cool. So I had this t-shirt and shorts, and that's my bed shirt, and it had a little hole in it, and it was like right around my belly button. And I was joking that it was like, a way to scratch my belly button. I have to lift my shirt up. Yes, okay, whatever. Those of you who know me know. Anyway, so I'm like, yeah, and and it was like the hole was right there, so like I had come to this habit of just like putting my finger in the hole and just playing with it, and on my shirt, and so I didn't know how much that bothered my friend, that I had a hole in my shirt, in my bed shirt. And to me, I'm just like, it's a bed shirt. Nobody gonna see you. You're just sleeping in it and ain't no thing, right? But it became quite clear when I handed them over for the wash one night and went to go put them on the next day for bed. And of course, because I had the little habit of just playing with the hole in my shirt. Act like you haven't done that, okay? Whatever. And if you haven't, you might want to try it. Anyway, so I went to, just kind of by habit, go kind of stick my finger in the hole in my shirt as I was laying on the couch. And I'm like, where did the hole go? There's this thing there. It's kind of... She had sewed up the hole in my bed shirt. Yep. Now, to some people, this would just be kind of, yeah, it was funny, and it was cute, and, you know, you sewed up the hole in my shirt, you know. But for me, it was very telling about how I valued myself. And yeah, it's a bed shirt, and yeah, it was a little hole. It wasn't, you know, huge or anything. It was just, you know, but it matters. It mattered. And she wasn't wrong. And that just showed, like, the difference to how some people are brought up to with this great deal of self-respect, you know. And even though you're going to bed and this is a shirt, it shouldn't have a hole in it. You know, and me, myself, it was no big deal, blah, blah, you know. But it mattered. It mattered. She wasn't wrong. It mattered. And that showed me painfully, so, all the things that, all the little, you know, you know, everybody likes to use the micro thing these days, but like the little, you know, micro neglects, you know. And yeah, I started seeing that in my own life and in the lives of people around me, in the communities around me, you know, and it brought me back to, you know, growing up. We were poor. We didn't have much of anything, you know. Bread and butter, Jiffy Pop food kind of poor. That's what we had to eat sometimes. There was nothing in the cupboards, and, you know, fortunately we had a roof over our head, but a lot of times the electricity was cut off, you know. Despite all that, you know, my mom was an incredibly hard worker, and that, you know, if nothing else, she never gave up, she never quit, and she worked very hard. We had, you know, we were on food stamps, you know, at one point, and I know how embarrassed she was in the store to have to use those. And I remember standing there as a little kid, seeing her shame and taking that shame into myself, because I knew how just devastated she was to have to rely on that kind of stuff. And even though we were poor, though, we never looked it. She never let us leave the house looking ratty and crappy. We didn't have great clothes. They were always hand-me-downs or secondhand stuff, but they never had holes in them. And our little socks were always white. Now, mind you, my mom was a little OCD, and she had some issues in that area, you know, like, okay, germs and dirt and, like, over the edge. But it kind of, it brought back that. Just because you don't have a lot of money, you don't have a lot of things, doesn't mean they need to look like shit, you know, and it doesn't mean you need to look like that either. And so that it kind of brought that full circle for me. And since then, you know, I have been, you know, digging deeper and deeper and deeper into this whole self-worth thing and self-value. You know, as many as you know, my teeth are not the best. And it has to do some with genetics and some with decades of taking very strong psychiatric medication that gave you terrible dry mouth, that jacked up my teeth. It also had to do with self-neglect too. I'm not, you know, I wasn't taking care of myself either, so my teeth are jacked up. I got, you know, one broke off, but that is next on my list. And that really highlighted it, you know, that type of self-care too became very highlighted while I was there. So that's next on my list. I'm having my teeth taken care of. You know, I don't have insurance for that, but you know what? I'm going to find a way, because it's freaking important. So, you know, I'm looking into options and things like that to have them taken care of. But this is my era of tending to all those little micro neglects that I have engaged in over these years. And And so, yeah, even getting out on my bike, getting out on my walks every day is our steps towards that. You know, I come out here, I connect with nature, I move my body, I get some exercise, I talk with my peeps. I call this my board meeting time where I talk to them. That's why I find all these gifts and everything, because it's literally they're talking to me. They're messages from them in real time about things that we're talking about. But even then, I had to get to the point where I thought I was worthy to even have discussions with them. And my peeps, if you don't know, they're my soul family, my ancestors, my guides, my angels, fill in the blank. Everybody on the other side. As part of a shamanic practitioner, that's what we do. We do work in the other worlds to affect change in this one, but that work is never alone. It's always in conjunction with our soul. I call them my soul legion family. So we are only as effective as is our relationship with our soul legion family, how strong that is, and it takes time to cultivate. But that's why I find all these things. It's, you know, they're talking to me in real time. They're giving me messages in real time about what I'm out here discussing with them. You know, sharing what's on my heart and processing and all of that. But again, it took me a little bit to get to the point where I felt I was worthy of doing all that, of even working through all of these things and, you know, striving to make my life better and build the life that I dream of, the life that I deserve. So anyway, this is kind of a culmination of all of that. And I wanted to share that story with you because even the little tiny pinky finger size hole in my bed shirt freaking mattered. It matters. Okay? And if you don't have a lot of funds right now, it doesn't matter. Okay? It doesn't matter. So what's one little thing, one little tiny thing you can do today to sew up the hole in your self-worth? One little tiny thing. It could be eat a healthy meal. Buy some vegetables. Take a walk around the block. Doesn't have to be a lot of movement. I know it's hard when I know it was hard for me when I was stagnant for quite a while. I got back into, because even though I was an overweight kid, I was always active. I swam competitively. I played soccer. I rode my bike everywhere. Typical Gen Xer, rode our bike everywhere, right? 2 towns over, you're riding your bike. But I was very active. But then there was like I said, a period of time where I terribly neglected myself. I was dealing with some severe mental health issues and working through all that. So things like teeth, you know, body stuff got put on the wayside. So I started out with like some very gentle yin yoga is really good. Just anything just to move your body. When we say exercise, it doesn't have to be like your heart's going to pop out of your chest, you know, for an hour. If you're used to not moving at all, even just a little movement out to the mailbox and back is movement. So don't, you know, it's all relative. Okay, it's all relative. I'm out here on my bike, but I had to work up to that. Okay, so I'm just saying, I guess I'm sharing this with you because I understand the difficulty. I understand the wounding. I understand, you know, the stories that we have been told about ourselves, about what we're worthy of and what we're worth. And I promise you, I understand the difficulty and the gut-wrenchingness of reclaiming that, and still doing it, right? But it starts with one little thing. One little thing. What's one little thing you can do to sew up the hole? That's it. And then just keep going from there. All right. Much love. Keep it up. Keep going. You're worth it. End of transmission.